Dogworks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dogworks. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
From Dogworks Radio, this is Mushing Radio. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Alex Stein and Robert Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto, created for Dogworks Radio.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto, and you're listening to Mushing Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site, and you can find all of our episodes over on DogWorksRadio.com. Be sure to check us out on social media by searching Dogworks Radio. And today we have a musher calling in from Knik, Alaska. His name is Eric Kelly. Eric, how's it going today?
It's going well. Doing well.
Well, thank you for joining us today. If you will, can you tell us who you are and what you're all about, please?
My name's Eric Kelly. We're up here in Knik. Just have a small dog team, about 22 dogs. We're trying to get our qualifiers done so we could get to Iditarod next year. That's the plan. We've had dogs now since 2015, I guess, when we first put a kennel together, and it's evolved since then. So that's where we're at.
So when did you get started in mushing? I saw a Facebook post the other day. You were in a picture with Newton Marshall, and you had said that you guys go pretty far back. So how did you get started in this sport?
Through meeting Newton. I'd obviously been a fan of the Iditarod and mushing. I'd moved to Alaska in 2008. And even before I got up here, I was a fan of the sport. And then by chance, my son was doing an interview for the school paper, and he interviewed Newton. And I just happened to have some time off of work that winter, and Newton needed a hand, so I just, did a lot of poop scooping and helped him do some fundraising, and that's how I first got involved. And that evolved into actually moving onto the property where Newton had been staying, and Kathleen Frederick had her dogs there, because that's the dogs that Newton was running for the Iditarod that year, and so I kind of got a deal with Kathleen where we ended up on the property, took care of her dogs. They stayed here, and we did that for a few years before we got our own dogs 2 years ago.
So you said that you had a relatively small kennel. How many dogs do you have, and where do they come from, or what bloodlines are they?
We have 22 dogs and I acquired 12 of the dogs from a musher named Noah Pereira. I believe that's how you say his last name. He had known I was looking for dogs, and he had a pretty good-sized kennel, and he had finished Iditarod 2 years ago, and he was looking to downsize a little, so we worked a deal there, and then I got a few dogs from Ramey Reddington, a few dogs through Wade Mars, and a couple dogs from Kathleen Frederick, and we kind of put a pretty good team together. We have the lines. I've got a little bit of CV dogs in there, Reddington dogs, obviously. Some of the dogs I'm not quite sure where they're from, but we've actually ended up with a pretty good dog team. I'm pretty excited about it.
So, Eric, you had mentioned that you live over in Knik, and for folks that are familiar with that part of Alaska, that's the true home to Iditarod. That's where the Iditarod headquarters is. That's sort of Reddingtonville, as they call it, and you have direct access to the old Iditarod Trail. You had mentioned that you had been there since, I believe you said that Newton Marshall was on that property. Was that by design? Did you want to stay in that area, or are you looking for expansion, whether you're going to Fairbanks or into the Willow area? Are you happy where you're at right now?
Well, for right now, we're happy where we're at. We actually ended up purchasing the property. Newton had been staying there and set it up just for a training season. We ended up, through the person that owned it, buying the property. And it's working out well for now. I think in the distant future, I wouldn't mind heading out towards Willow, Caswell area. I think they have a little better snow out there, it seems like these days, and the trail systems are great out there. I mean, it's nice being connected to the Iditarod Trail, but further north seems probably the direction we're heading, but not right away. I got some teenage kids. We got to get them out of high school before we move too far north.
So speaking of the teenagers, are they involved with the mushing as well, or is it just is it a family affair, or is it just them helping out Dad in the dog yard?
It is. My daughter, she's 13. She's into it. My son, he's not so much. It's just not his thing. And we're hoping to get my daughter into junior Iditarod next year, or at least the Willow Junior race, maybe this year. But the training hasn't been awesome, so we're not sure if we're going to get that done this year. But yeah, so my wife's involved and the kids, and it's pretty much just us doing it. So it's a pretty tight-knit little family operation. Sorry.
Before we jump into this season and what sort of your plans are, what do you do when you're not running dogs? Are you a full-time job guy? Do you work on the side, and the dogs? What's going on there?
I actually work full-time. I work for a company called Taylor Fire Protection. I actually install fire sprinkler systems. I've been with them 12 years, and they're a great company, and they actually back me financially a little bit in my mushing adventures, and they also afford me time off to go to races and train, and so it's been a good relationship with them. So, yeah, but I do work full-time in the summers. In the winter, it's a little less than full-time. So how does that go into your sort of your training plans or sort of how you operate your kennel? Because you have folks that have the luxury of going up to the Denali Highway, for example, where the snow is always excellent, and they go up there for days at a time. And I'm always curious how folks mix up things with the job and the family and everything else, and of course trying to get all those training miles in as well. Well, it can be a bit of a struggle. I did have handlers at the beginning of the season. They've moved on. So now, like I said, now with my job, I'm pretty much working 1 or 2 days a week, so I can kind of travel and train as I need, which has been nice. But it is a struggle sometimes working full-time and trying to get the miles on the dogs. But so far this year, we've made it happen. So, it's just not always a exact plan. Sometimes you just go on a moment's notice to get where you got to go. But we're making it work.
You had mentioned, Eric, that the snow hasn't been real good this year, and I'm in the same boat. Even though we're 25 miles north of you, we're barely on sleds up here because of the lack of snow. Then we had the big melt there around New Year's, and of course we've been bitterly cold the last couple of weeks. What do you think about that? You said you've been up here since 2008, I believe. I moved up in 2010, and I tell you what, this is probably one of the least snow years that I've seen since I've been up here.
Yeah, it seems like each year it gets a little worse. I was saying to somebody the other day, I said, I think us Connect mushers, we might be the first climate refugees. We're always traveling looking for the snow, and so yeah, that's one reason we're kind of looking to moving north, because it seems like the snow is up that way. But yeah, it makes it a struggle. I mean, we're still from the dog lot here. We're still training on an ATV, and then the bitter cold though kind of slowed us down a little. But we're getting out there. But yeah, the lack of snow has been a struggle for a couple of years. Last year wasn't. Later in the year, last year we did all right, but early season miles were tough to get with a sled.
That is crazy that we're still doing ATV training here in the second week of January. And the reason I ask you this question, Eric, because you had said that you're trying to qualify for Iditarod, and for folks that aren't mushers, there's sort of that golden window of dogs, and they peak at a certain age, and if you wait too long, they're sort of over the hill, and if you go too soon, of course, they're not young enough to go. But when you're dealing with weather like this, Eric, it can be a real challenge, especially if you're signed up for the race already or you're thinking about doing all of your qualifiers in 1 year. How are you lining that out when Mother Nature's kind of slapping us in the face?
Well, when I first got in, I had this plan how I was going to get all my qualifiers done in 1 year and I was going to be in the Iditarod the next year. Well, about halfway through that first year, I realized we're just going to take our time. And I'm signed up I have 2 300 milers this year, and that'll give me what I need. But my new goal is I'm in this to have fun and not to let it stress me out. So if I take what it gives me, and if I can get the qualifiers done, I get them. My goal is to get to the Iditarod someday, but I'm not gonna stress about it. I love dog mushing is enjoyable to me, and I try to keep it that way. So that first year, I started stressing, I'm not reaching my goals. I'm not getting where I need to go. And I figured out if I just take a deep breath and keep happy dogs, we'll get where we need to go eventually. So I just try not to stress about it.
And that's a great attitude to have for sure, and I'm sort of in that same boat as you. You had mentioned those qualifiers, Eric. We're recording this on the 8th of January, and I know that you're preparing to head up to the Copper Basin 300 here this coming weekend, and then you're going to race in that race, and of course this show will air after that. But I believe you also said that you're signed up for the Willow 300 and potentially the Goose Bay 150, which will cover all of your qualifiers. Then potentially later on in the year, I believe they happen in March or so, the Two Rivers 200 and whatnot are happening there. So how does it look right now for how things stand heading into this first race here in just a couple of days? How does the team look? How do you feel? Where are you at? And are you firing on all cylinders?
We're doing well. We had a big thaw, so we got behind on miles, but we've been able to catch it up. The team's looking as good as they've looked all year. They're strong, and I'm feeling good. So we're ready to go. We're like I said, we're doing our food drops and stuff tonight to get ready, and we're going to head out Friday morning. And we got a positive attitude, and we're just ready to go. And for the rest of the year, we're just, like the Willow, we're really looking forward to the Willow. We were ready to do it last year, and it got canceled. So we're just excited to just get the racing season going.
That Goose Bay 150, that truly runs through your backyard there along the old Iditarod Trail, then on up towards Yentna and whatnot. Those are your home trails, so that should be a relatively easy race for you, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and I've actually run it twice before. That's where I cut my teeth, right on the Goose Bay 150. It's a nice race because it's a short race, but it's 2 long runs, and it really kind of gives you an idea, of just how racing goes. And I've actually done all right in that race. So it's an enjoyable race. I look forward to it every year. Last year I didn't make it. I actually ended up having to work, but I did it two prior years before that. I did do that race, and I look forward to it because it's the home race. So. Yeah, and then we were also signed up this year for the Connect 200, but that didn't go as well because we didn't have any snow.
So earlier you learned about First Paw Coffee Company, and now I'm going to tell you about its Tail Wagger Blend. First Paw Coffee Company's Tail Wagger Blend is their first offering, and its name and label were crowdsourced from their Facebook fans. How cool is that? The Tail Wagger Blend is a private label premium blend that was developed just for them. It is a medium roast from Colombian beans with tastes of Brazil nuts, grapefruit, and oak. Be sure to go to ak.dog/free and enter to win a bunch of cool prizes. That's ak.dog/free.
So let's jump back to the Copper Basin, Eric. We had talked earlier in the show about this sort of being a family affair with the kids and your wife taking part in some of the activities. For folks that are listening, the Copper Basin is sort of unique because the handler crew follows along the trail, and then they if it's a qualifier, they can't help you, but they make sure the drop bags are set and they can clean up and all that sort of stuff. How does your help look going into this race, and are they excited to be a part of this and probably not sleeping for 2 or 3 days?
Well, yeah, they're excited. My wife, she actually teaches school, but she's got the time off to come on the race. And then the kids aren't coming on the race, but our friend John, he's been around dogs a lot. He's jumping in to help. So the two of them are going to handle the truck and the handler duties and while I'm on the race. And I'm obviously excited to have my wife along. And John's a good guy, so we're excited to have him too. And we're just getting ready to go. So definitely excited. And the handler crew is pretty top notch, so I'm excited.
And it's very similar to NASCAR. It's sort of a well-oiled machine. If that handler crew is firing all cylinders, a lot of times that equates to how the dogs do with rest and proper feeding and all that. And it's just one of those really unique races where they're involved with that. The other race that you're planning on doing is the Willow 300, and that's an interesting race. It starts right on Willow Lake, the start of the Iditarod restart, and it has a mass start, and then it goes on up north towards Talkeetna and much further on Trapper Creek, and then sort of on and back. Have you ran that race before, and what are your expectations on a race that's quite a bit different than the Copper Basin?
Well, I actually 2 years ago I entered the race. I made it about halfway. I didn't finish. I actually hurt my knee bad enough where I couldn't run my sled. But I actually enjoyed it. The mass start, because I was running that as one of my first 300-mile qualifier. I held back on the mass start. I didn't take off with the crowd, but I actually enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to getting back this year and completing it. But it's a fun race, and I like the way they put it on. The people involved in it are all good people, and they put on a good race. So yeah, I'm excited to get there. That's another one. I was signed up last year, but the weather took its toll on that race as well. So this year's kind of a redo of races I couldn't get into last year.
Yeah, I've done that so many times. Signed up for them and, had all of my eggs in one basket, and then, one or two is canceled. So I know exactly what you're saying there. Eric, you had talked about sort of that laid-back attitude and let's wait and see what happens. I assume that you're not out there, trying to, be in the top 10 or to, claim any big prizes. What is your what's your plan? How do you go into a race? And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you today, because I love to hear about, the folks that are in the middle of the pack and then on back, because they have an entirely different plan than, the big boys, the Jeff Kings and the Martin Boosers and the Seavies and whatnot. How do you go into a race with all that in mind?
Well, I kind of keep a little motto in my head when I'm heading into these races is that we're here to complete, not compete. So I'm trying to complete the races, not compete. I go in, I figure I'm going to run equal run rest at a minimum, more if I need to. My goal as a qualifier is to be at the back of the pack. I know a lot of people are like, what? But I'm ready. I'm happy just being back there, taking my time, we're trying to qualify for Iditarod, so basically what I'm trying to do is through the race improve, get my checkpoint skills down, my dog care skills, make sure everything's top notch. I know people are watching while you're qualifying, and it's just to take my time, go slow, don't push the dogs, don't push myself, beyond where I need to be to just keep the dogs moving and happy. I don't know if I'll ever be one competing for the top 10, but I just like to take my time. I just like being with the dogs and the team, and I like the whole atmosphere of the race. So I just go in, like I said, to complete the race, not compete in the race. That's kind of my motto.
When you do these races, whether you're qualifying or you're just out there like you did the Goose Bay 150 a couple of times there, are you a loner on the trail, or do you find a traveling buddy with whomever is around, and you guys sort of travel the trail together? There's sort of both sides of the coin from what my understanding. There are people that really enjoy that and other people that just prefer to put their head down and rock and roll.
I seem to just run by myself most of the time. I wouldn't mind, traveling along with somebody, but pretty much the races I've been in, I seem to just have kind of been a loner, and I'm okay with that too. You know, I get to the checkpoint, I might visit or whatever, visit with whoever's around. But as far as when I'm packing up to leave or how long I'm staying at the checkpoint, I go when my dogs are ready, or or when I'm ready and the team looks good. I don't base it on anybody else's schedule. So yeah, I do my thing. Seems to be what works best for me.
So let's talk a little bit about those qualifiers once more before we move on to the next topic. And this is mainly for the listeners to the podcast that aren't mushers. What is required of you as a qualifier? What are some of the things that you have to do that folks that are just out there, whether they're doing it for a training run or to potentially win the race, what do you have to do different? Are there steps you have to take that make sure that it counts?
Well, when you sign up for the race, you sign up. You let them know you're running as a qualifier, and you run your race at the same. But they're keeping an eye on you. You're not allowed to have any outside help. They want to see that you can take care of your dog team and take care of yourself. And as far as anything else, I'm not really sure. There's not that much of a difference besides just not having help and making sure you're doing everything right. Finishing position doesn't matter in a qualifier. They just want to make sure that you're competent with your team, competent with yourself out in the wilderness and at the checkpoints. I think they just try to make sure you're not going to send anybody down the Iditarod trail that's not competent in taking care of themselves and their dogs. Qualifying for the Iditarod, you need, I believe, 2 300-mile races and then a 150 or 200-mile race. You need a total of 750 qualifying miles of racing to make it to Iditarod.
And with the Copper Basin, that is said to be one of the toughest 300-mile races in Alaska. Do you agree with that statement?
I haven't run it, but anybody I've talked to has told me, including Newton, and Ramey Reddington told me that last night. I was talking to him. He said that's a tough race. And yes, I do believe it. And Newton also told me, he said that race might be tougher on the handlers than it is on the musher, because he's run the race and handled it. So he said handling it's not an easy task either. So yeah, I agree. It's probably the toughest 300-miler out there.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned that your handlers they're going to go 2 or 3 days without sleep, because they're rocking and rolling up 300 miles of the trail in the truck. And folks that aren't, that don't know a lot about mushing, you're not coming in on a 9 to 5 schedule. You may show up to a checkpoint at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the next one at 2 in the afternoon or whatever. It's truly a 24-hour event, isn't it?
Yeah, it is based on your run, your run rest schedule. You go when it's time, and you get where you go when you get there. So yeah, it's not like you can put a schedule together, I guess, before you leave, which I do. But it seems like probably after the first checkpoint, you're running a different schedule. It all depends on like this week, and I know that I saw Saturday, they say in Glen Allen, where the race starts, it looks like 43 below zero. So
wow.
It's going to take they're going to be extra snacking, keeping the weight on the dogs, lots of fat, and just keeping the dogs healthy. And that weather is it's hard. Dogs burn a lot of energy and a lot of calories when it's that cold out. So that's not a concern, but it's definitely in the plan. It's in the plan to keep the dogs healthy
right.
Just take our time in that kind of weather.
So, Eric, we have just a few minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about your Facebook page. I believe it's Daybreak Mushing on Facebook. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep. It says Daybreak Mushing. Eric Kelly is the Facebook page. Yep.
And I see on your page that you have a pretty robust dog sponsorship program where fans and supporters, friends, and all that can sponsor your dogs for the race season. And we talk on this show all the time that mushing is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. Is that your primary sponsoring program? I know you said that your work helps you out as well, but how do you help yourself on the trail in terms of sponsorships?
Pretty much the dog sponsorships that's kind of our main way to bring in funds. We're working on having some merchandise and T-shirts and things like that. We're not quite there yet. Probably for our Iditarod year we'll be a little more set up for that. But actually the dog sponsorship thing, we tried it for a while and it didn't work, and then all of a sudden it took off this last few weeks, and it's gone really well, and it's great to see. We have lots of friends and family joining, jumping on board and sponsoring dogs. We pretty much have the whole race team sponsored at this point, and we're feeling pretty good about it. I know, like you said, my company helps out financially, which is nice. And because, like you said, dog mushing is not a cheap sport, but I sure do love it. It's worth every dime we put into it.
So we have 5 minutes left, literally, and I have two more things that I want to accomplish here on the show. The last thing we want to do is I ask the same question to all my guests. Before that, since we're talking about dog sponsorships, can you share a quick story about one of your dogs, whether it be something, a quirk that they have, or your favorite lead dog, or whatever? Let's hear a story about one of your favorites.
Well, I'll tell you about this dog I have. Her name's Alas. She's a all white, beautiful dog. I got her from Noah. He said this dog will be your main leader. You'll grow to love her. And all last year, me and Alas, we just didn't really get along. I put her out lead, she wouldn't. She just, I don't know, we didn't have it. And during this season, I was out running, and one of my leader, Pencil, kind of gave up. And she just was done, and I put Alas out there with the dog Althea that she was running with, and Alas didn't want to go, and I was like, just so they were going, but it just wasn't working. Then I put Alas out there by herself, and that team came alive like I've never seen, and I found out that dog Alas, she loves to run single lead, and when she does, it's just the rest of the team just comes alive, and it blew me away. And like Noah said, she has now become, she gives me confidence in that team like I've never had in a dog team. And we've got her now where she will run with another dog beside her, but she just loves to be alone out there and in charge of the team. She's become probably my favorite dog. I love them all, but the last month or so has really, really become my favorite dog on the team. It's been awesome. So that's a special dog when you have a single leader, and a lot of people watch the sled dog movies like Togo and all the Disney type movies, and they always see that single leader, but that's relatively uncommon. Almost all the teams out there these days are running with double leaders, and it's always cool to find one that will jump up there and really take charge, huh? Yeah, it was. I mean, the whole dynamic of the team changed. Like it was like as it unfolded, I almost couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, now I see what Noah was talking about when he told me about that, how good she would be. And she'll be in lead at the Copper Basin this weekend. So
excellent.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Last question, Eric. Before we go here, I asked the same question to all of our guests, and we've had on people from all over the world in sprint mushing, expeditions, Iditarod, you name it. And I love hearing the answers that people give. And that is, if somebody is just getting started in mushing, whether it be in any type of the sport, all the way from canicross to Iditarod or Quest, if they were to ask you for one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
I would say be ready for the unexpected and always keep an open mind to what's happening around you with your team, with nature, with you just have to keep your mind and your eyes open at all times and be prepared for whatever's coming at you. With mushing, what I've noticed is whatever you expect to happen isn't usually what happens. It's usually something else. So I would say just be prepared.
Be prepared.
Yeah. Be prepared. Yeah.
Yep.
So
that's great advice to have. And like you said, you're going into the Copper Basin where, negative 43 temperatures. That's relatively uncommon. and it's probably throw out a wrench or two into your plan. So I want to say here before we go, thanks for being on the show. Good luck in the race season, and we'll definitely keep in touch. And I'll shoot over all the links and whatnot once it goes live. And hope you do well in the races this year, Eric.
All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
Sounds very good. This is Robert Forto on behalf of my guest today, Eric Kelly. You can check him out at Daybreak Mushing / Eric Kelly on Facebook. He's pretty active on there, and I am sure he would love to hear from some of his fans and supporters if you shoot him a message. We will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
From First Paw Media, this is DogWorks Radio. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert and Michelle Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media. Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.